Hey, this is Jungle Jenna, and this is my review of Me Before You, starring Sam Claflin and Amelia Clark. So basically, Me Before You is about a girl named Lou who is kind of struggling to hold down a job and seems to be drifting aimlessly. So, to help out her family, she takes this job as a caretaker for a man who is paralyzed from the neck down, and his name is Will Trainer. And before he was paralyzed, he was basically like this hotshot guy who had this fantastic career. He was super wealthy, ridiculously handsome, had lots of sex. He's basically like what's his face from 50 Shades of Grey, Christian Grey minus the BDSM. That's basically what he is. And then he gets hit by a motorcycle and he is paralyzed from the neck down. This is where our story begins. So basically, Will Trainer hasn't really adjusted very well to his situation, and he's very bitter, and he's very cold towards Lou, who's very perky and described as being chatty. And no matter how hard Lou tries to connect with him, he just wants nothing to do with her. And at some point, they do end up striking up a bond and a connection. And, he shows her movies that he loves that she's never seen before, that she's never been exposed to because he's so cultured and she's so average and not, and from the countryside and whatever. So as they get to know each other, at some point, Lou ends up finding out that Will has attempted suicide on multiple occasions and wants to go to Switzerland to be euthanized. And he's basically given his parents 6 months to think about it, even though he's pretty much already made up his mind that that's what he's going to do. So, part of why Lou was brought in by his parents was to convince him that life is worth living and, they basically just want to change his mind. At this point, Lou has grown to care for him, and she really wants him to choose to live as well and doesn't want him to die. So she goes about organizing these kind of extravagant excursions and vacations to try to show him that he can still enjoy life while being paralyzed and that he can adjust to his situation. And for those of you who don't want to be spoiled, I'm just going to say that Will, in the end, decides that he wants to die, and he does go through with his assisted suicide. So I had a lot of issues with this movie, mainly with the ending and with the message that it puts out, about being disabled and everything. I don't have a spinal cord injury, and by no means I can't imagine what it would be like to be in that position of being paralyzed, but I am legally blind, and I do understand to some extent what it's like to go from being able to do simple things like driving, making eye contact with people, uh, identifying people's faces, reading a book, watching a movie and being able to see the little details and the little nuances of what's going on before me, and not being able to do those things anymore. So I can understand that whole process of getting adapted to a new way of living and having to adapt to new technology to help me so that I can live like other people. So I'm not comparing myself to Will Trainer or anybody else who is paralyzed and in that sort of situation, because obviously their situation is far worse than mine. But there are people who are in that situation who adapt to it and they go on to do amazing things. Where Will in the movie, he has everything at his disposal. He's basically the most privileged person that I can possibly think of. He's ridiculously wealthy. He lives in a castle. He has his parents who are very loving and supportive of him, and he has I was about to say Amelia, but meant to say Lou. He has Lou who ultimately falls in love with him and wants to be by his side and wants to experience life with him, where he just flat out refuses to do so. And it kind of is glossed over at the beginning. Like, I think someone asks him why he never went back to his job, and he says that he did, but that it just wasn't the same as before when he was, like I said, a total hotshot. So because he's not like an A plus grade A whatever anymore, that he doesn't want to even try to live. And I can't stress this enough. Will doesn't even try. He doesn't try to adapt to his situation. He doesn't try to be positive. He doesn't even try to enjoy the things that Lou and other people do for him. He already has his mind made up that he's going to die and that he has nothing left to give. When why couldn't he use his wealth to help children or to help people in his situation? Why couldn't he uh why couldn't he do things that, to contribute to other people in their lives? So I just like have a really hard time feeling bad for Will's character because he just literally doesn't try. And it's hard to enjoy a movie like Me Before You when I just watched The Theory of Everything, which I actually reviewed not that long ago, and it's about Stephen Hawking and his first marriage to Jane Wilde, and it kind of goes over the progression of his disease. Even though he hasn't sustained a spinal cord injury, he still is in a wheelchair, and he actually gets to a point where he's not able to even use his voice. He loses complete control over his body and his movements, and yet despite this, he goes on to have 3 children. He marries and divorces twice. He writes a book. He travels all over the place. He stars in Star Trek. He describes his relationship with his second wife as passionate and tempestuous. I mean, there were so many things that that guy did, and he had such a great sense of humor. And he got up every day to be a professor and work with graduate students. And he wasn't afraid to rely on other people to help him. He actually uh, had this deal with graduate students who were looking for a room and board, that if they stayed in his house and gave him baths, that he would basically help them out with having a place to stay and not having to spend a fortune on it. So I think Me Before You just sends out like a really negative message about people with disabilities and about adapting to a new life when you have become disabled when you weren't before. And I just think that overall it just kind of gave me just an icky feeling. And overall, like, I was actually enjoying the movie up until the ending, and then the more that I was thinking about the ending and the overall movie and how Will didn't even try to live, and that it was actually Lou who was putting in most of the effort to get him to see from a different perspective, it just made me feel angry. I thought that Emilia Clarke was very charming in this movie. There are some people that thought that she kind of acted like a child and that she dressed like a child or like a preschool teacher. But I actually thought that she was really charming and I liked her wacky sense of style. I thought it kind of gave the movie like a little bit of flair that it wouldn't have had otherwise. But I liked Sam Claflin better I recently saw him in Adrift, and I liked his character better, and I liked his performance better overall in that movie. Whereas in this one, like, he was supposed to be playing this dry, sardonic, sort of bitter character, but it just came across as being very cardboardy and just that he was flat. He was flat as a pancake. So those are my thoughts on Me Before You. Definitely let me know what you think. I haven't read the book, and I don't plan on doing so. I actually checked on Amazon, and the book has over 18,000 reviews, and it has 4.5 stars. And the movie has over 6,000 reviews and has 4.5 stars. So it's just crazy to me that there's so much support and love for the story when I feel like it just has such a bad message about people with disabilities. But that's all that I have to say about it. And as I said before, let me know what you think. And thanks for watching. Bye.